Welcome to 5% Radio, where it's all about learning like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. Please be sure to share and subscribe. What is up, and welcome back, 5%ers, to another episode number 72 of the 5% Radio podcast. I want to talk to you today about a concept that I am very, very, very passionate about, and I want to kick things off with a story. So one of my good friends, when he was first just getting his start in business, was talking to his original mentor, his original coach, the first person that was really kind of helping him learn the ropes, if you will. And, he didn't really have a whole lot of skills, whether it was people skills or just ability when it came to sales or marketing, or there was really nothing particularly, that you would look at him and say, like, oh, right there, that's a talent. He's going to do great because of that. He can use that here. Like there was pretty much nothing, but he was hungry to go somewhere in life. And his mentor, his coach, looked at him and said, "You know what you've got going for you?" Real big smile on this guy's face. And he said, "What's that?" He said, "You can change." And he said, looking back, I was talking to him about this years later. He said, looking back in hindsight, he said that really was the only thing that I had going for me, was that I had the ability to change. I didn't have anything innately within me at that time, at that point, that you could look at and say, oh yeah, he's going to be successful because of this. He said, but I did have the capacity to change it. It's about this that I want to talk with you today. Another story that's, kind of famously illustrates this point is there was an old man, and as he's on his deathbed, he is kind of reflecting back on the life that was and all the things that he wish he would have and could have and should have done, kind of the frame that you would be in when you're at that point in your life. There's either, man, I'm so glad that I did, or I wish I would have. And he was looking back on that with the I wish I would have feeling. And as he's laying there on his deathbed, he begins to realize, I wanted to change the world. That was always what I wanted to do when I was younger. And he begins to realize that he had spent all of his time trying to change things that were outside of his control. He was trying to change other people and what they did. And he said this, he said, I wanted to change the world, but I realized that if I had started with myself, then possibly I could have changed my family if I had changed myself first. And then if I had changed myself and my family, maybe I could have changed my town. If I had changed my town, then maybe I could have changed my state or my province, depending on where you live. And then if I had changed myself, my family, my state, my province, my town, if I had done all those things in that order, self, family, town, state, province, if I had done that, then maybe I could have changed my country, and then maybe I could have changed my continent, then maybe, and only then, maybe I could have changed the world if I had started with myself. I was just reading a book recently by a man that was named Charlie and then nicknamed Tremendous Jones. So Charlie Tremendous Jones, and he wrote a book back in it was the late 1960s, I think, and it was Life is Tremendous is what this book was. And this man built $100 million sales organization and just massively successful. He spoke all over the world. Very, very, very interesting guy. I enjoyed reading his book. It had a lot of little just kind of, jokes in it, a lot of quips here and there, but he also gave some really good nuggets. And one of his biggest things that if you can read a book and have one takeaway, then the book was worth the read. There might be 99% garbage, but you're like, you know what? I got one nugget out of that book that's going to help me go further. And that nugget out of that book, the whole book was great, but the nugget that I drew out of that book was called SIBKIS. SIB-KIS. And that stands for See It Big, Keep It Simple. And ultimately, I don't know what your goals are. I don't know exactly what you want to do, where you want to go, who you want to be, the things you want to have, what you want to accomplish, what's most important to you. But if you're going to live a 5% life, that means if you're going to have time and money freedom to accomplish whatever you truly want to, because see, it's not about the money. Success is not about the money. It's not about the credentials. You're not going to be laying back on your deathbed and be like, what I was most proud of is that book that I wrote. It's going to be about the impact that you had on other people. Hopefully those that you work with, but most importantly, your family and those closest to you. But this concept of see it big, keep it simple, basically is exactly what it sounds like. See the big picture and then keep it as simple as possible. SIBKIS. And the one thing that you have within your control that I want to talk to you about today, when that guy asked his mentee, when the mentor, the coach asked my friend who had just gotten started in business, you know what you've got going for you? You can change. It's the same message to you. I don't know what talents or skills or what abilities or what giftings you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, not in an arrogant way, but I honestly I have some ability here. I have some gift. And based on how I steward the things that I've already been given at birth, based on how I steward the skills that I've developed, based on how I deal with and handle these abilities that I currently have, here's where I can go. You might not have a long list right now, and that's okay. It's not a big deal. If you don't have a long list right now, that's okay. In fact, the most successful people in the world, whether it's in sports, academia, business, it doesn't matter what it's in. It does not matter. Generally speaking, are not the most talented people. There's a book called Talent is Overrated. In that book, the author talks about the idea that basically at the top of the top of the top, the pinnacle of all sports, the pinnacle of all music, the pinnacle of anything you can imagine, chess, any sport, anything. It all came down to, you could look at surgeons. It all came down to the fact that they all had 10,000 hours of intentional practice, diligent practice. Basically, they were trying to get better at their craft for 10,000 hours, and that equaled mastery. The people who were more talented or less talented, it really kind of evened out, and it didn't really matter if they had talent to begin with. If they all put in the same work, they would all end up getting the same level of mastery. Now, some people can still be a little bit better than others, but what they found is that the people who were the most talented naturally were not usually the ones that ended up with true mastery because they did not learn to work hard for things. And I think that many people get really confused about this, and I want to talk about a couple different things. Some key takeaways that you will have on this episode are, we're going to talk about what's absolutely within your control. We're going to talk about what things, if I did them consistently, would be, basically, if I did these consistently enough in this specific quantity, what things would make it unreasonable for me not to be successful. And then we're going to kind of dive into a couple of other questions that you can use to frame some things in your mind to make sure that you're thinking through this properly. So first things first, let's talk about believing in yourself, because I feel like the pop culture and the pseudoscience and social media and everyone's like, oh, you got to believe in yourself, which is, it's super important. But first things first, you've got to let your brain be honest with itself, and it's going to ask this question right here when you're like, oh, I believe in myself and I can do this and I can do that. It's going to ask you this: where's the evidence? And I get this from Layla Hormozi, Alex Hormozi's wife. Where is the evidence? In other words, is there any supportive facts that would point to the reality of this being true? So if you're like, oh, I believe in myself, I can do it, I'm the world's greatest speaker, I'm the world's greatest this, and the world, like, okay, like, that's cool. Yeah, like, you need to be up. You don't need to be down on yourself. You don't need to look in the mirror and every day be like, I'm a loser. You're never going to do anything with your life. Like, boy, do I feel better. But if you're like, I'm struggling with self-belief, I'm struggling with confidence, I'm struggling with the belief that I really could do anything great with my life, there may not necessarily be evidence that you can do that yet, and that's okay. See, when I went from being a depressed, anxious, worried person who, I looked happy on the outside because I drank lots of caffeine and I always had a smile on my face and I always had energy, and people are like, oh man, he's just so happy-go-lucky, he's joyful, he's this and that. Like, I really wasn't. I was dealing with depression, deep, deep, deep depression. I'm talking like just, crying yourself to sleep for no reason. Like, nothing new was going on. I was just so depressed. This was years and years and years ago, like 2014, 2015, 2016, almost a decade ago now. And one of the things that I had to learn is when I was wrestling through that, I had to understand that, okay, I'm not positive yet. I don't have positive beliefs. I don't have a positive outlook on life. I don't see the glass as half full. Like that. It's just not where I'm at. So what I would ask myself is this right here. This was my little kind of reframe, and it would help me kind of mold reality in my brain. Okay, I'm not positive. I would tell myself this. I would tell myself an agreeable statement that my brain would be like, all right, he's being honest. I would say I'm not a positive person. But if I were a positive person, how would I think about this right now? If I was the most positive person that I knew, how would I think through and handle this specific situation? And then my brain was like, all right, so he's not faking. He didn't say he's super positive, didn't say he feels great, didn't say he's happy, didn't say he's joyful. Okay, yeah, no, we'll let him get by with this. Yeah, how would he, if he were positive, what would he think about? How would he deal with this? And I would come up with all these positive solutions, and I would come up with this positive lens that I could look through everything that was going on and see my life through a positive lens, but I wasn't positive. If I was, though, how would I think about this? See, belief in yourself, you looking in the mirror and being like, I believe and I am and I'm this and I'm that, like, I'm not against that, but let's be honest. If you look in the mirror every day and right now you're 300 pounds and you should be like 180 and you're like, I have six-pack abs, I am ripped, your brain's not stupid. It's going to be like, you are lying. Like, and that's okay. But if you were to start off the basis of, okay, there might not be evidence yet, but then you build just a little shred of evidence. So you choose something healthy for breakfast. If you're looking at finances, you choose to get out a little booklet and you write down everything you spend, everything, gas, gum, energy drinks, fast food, like anything you spend money on, you write it down. Groceries, $81, which, right now in 2024, that would mean that you got like half a bag of groceries and maybe like, a third of a gallon of milk. Maybe it was a discount with a coupon, like, not a whole lot, but you would write down everything you spent money on. If you're looking to get better at sales, you could write down or track the fact that I read this many sales books this year and attended this many conferences. If you're looking to get better in your marriage, you could say, okay, I might not have evidence yet that says that I'm a great husband, but I can look back on this situation and be like, you know what? I handled that super well today. I normally would have blown up, but I didn't. Man, there's just a little shred of evidence, and you could begin to build a case for yourself against your negative limiting beliefs, against your doubts, against the negativity, against the voice of defeat that is talked about in David Schwartz's Magic of Thinking Big. He talks about Mr. Triumph and Mr. Defeat. See, there's kind of two things in your brain. If I ask a negative question, my brain will go to all of the negative memories and all the negative evidence that my brain has, and it will be like, hey, perfect, I got the evidence right here. But if I ask a positive question, what makes me able to do this? Is there anything that I can point to in the past? Why would I be good at this? How can I make this happen? How and what if questions are extremely powerful in the positive. How can I make this happen? What if this worked? Great example of this. See, I've got a lot of things that I can look at as evidence that I can do new things because I have done a lot of difficult things in the past. I'm not anywhere close to where I want to be, but I'm moving in that direction. And because of that, I have these actions that I can stack up, that I can look at, and that I can take a positive belief from and say, okay, if I did that, I can do this. And therefore, I can believe that I can overcome X, Y, Z. So today, there was some stuff going on. We had a client that I really figured was going to stiff us. So our expenses almost tripled last month on our business because we have new software costs and things like that. And I have 2 offices that I'm running ads for currently. And I really thought this guy was going to drop us because his cash flow is terrible. And we had like a bad couple weeks, like nothing major, but the guy's cash flow is just, it's really not good. He's a super great guy. I've really enjoyed working with him. And then I had another person that is kind of like in limbo. Our sales cycle is, anywhere from like 1 to 3 weeks, depending on how well you know the person, how well the first call goes, all that kind of stuff with chiropractors that we serve. And I'm not a pushy sales guy. Like if they want to work with us, great, but I'm not going to go chase someone down if they're like, maybe like, hey, you make your decision. I can give you anything you want. I can give you case studies. I can let you talk to clients, all that stuff. But like, I'm not going to chase you down and look like I'm desperate for the next dollar. That being said, we were in a spot where I'm like, all right, like either this guy's not going to pay and we're like, who knows what's going to happen, or he is going to pay. And then I'm like, you know what? I left the house and I'd listened to like 4 different talks, from absolute winners today, business talks and personal development, leadership and things like that. And I leave the house and I'm on a walk with my wife and our 2 kiddos. And I'm like, you know what? No, not only is he going to pay us, we're going to absolutely knock it out of the park so much that the third-party vendor that we're with is going to start sending us way more referrals. We're going to become one of their go-to, like, absolute default. This is our go-to partner. Not only is that going to happen, that he's going to pay us, and we're going to knock it out of the park so much so that we actually partner up with this other agency and they begin sending us more and more and more and more clients for free. But also, he's going to bring on another niche with us at one of his offices. So we're going to be running 3 niches at 2 different offices. And this other person that said they may come on with us, that they might work with us, they're going to get a hold of me and they are going to tell me that they are ready to rock. And guess what happened? Now, I'm not going to say there's anything, cosmic forces in the universe and these crystals jingled and it all aligned in the planet, like nothing weird like that. But I was thinking positive. I was not letting my brain catastrophize, which is when you let your brain go to the absolute worst case scenario. Like, oh, they're not going to pay the invoice, and then all my clients are going to drop me, and then I'm going to end up living in my car, my kids are going to leave me, and I'm going to have to get a job at McDonald's and live on the street and, push all my belongings around in a shopping cart, and then all my friends are going to see me, and they're going to know that I'm a loser, and that's catastrophizing, like, worst possible case scenario, and your brain just runs away with the stuff. Guess what happened? I hopped on a call with that guy today. Things are good to go. Invoice is going to get paid as normal. This other person texted me at like 10 o'clock this morning, like, hey, I'd like to get started Tuesday. We booked a call. She's ready to rock. I'm going to get a referral fee. And then I'm actually moving forward towards a partnership, I think, in the next couple of weeks, most likely with the way things are looking with that other agency, because we've been bringing them more business and we've been crushing it for our other clients that we're working with simultaneously with them. So guess what? I was able to believe in what was going to happen because I had other things to look at. So if you cannot currently believe in yourself, your ability to change means that I'm going to stack up evidence for myself. You know what you've got going for you is you can change. Second thing I want to talk about, believing you've got everything it takes already. Who you are is most likely not capable of what you want, where you want to go, and who you want to become right now. Period. Who you are, what you're doing, the skill sets, all the different things, like your current habits will not take you to where you want to go. You're going to have to change some things. If you want to change some things in your life, you're going to have to change some things in your life. And the person that you currently are, the habits that you currently have, the way you think, the way you speak to yourself and others, the inner dialogue that goes on, the self-talk, meaning like the sub-vocalization, you know, like when you read a book and you're saying the words in your head. Yeah, that happens all the time when people say like, oh no, I don't talk to myself, only crazy people talk to themselves. Guess what? You just had that. If I told you, yeah, you probably talk to yourself right now. You're sitting there driving in traffic and you're like, in your head, silently, you're like, no, I don't. This guy's nuts. You just talk to yourself. Sorry about that. It's just the truth. Everyone talks to themselves. If you talk to you the way that your friends talk to you, be good to go. But if you talk to your friends the way that you talk to yourself, you'd probably have no friends. Most people are extremely negative, pessimistic. You know, everything's shades of, I was going to say 50 Shades of Grey, and then I'm like, nope, that's not what I meant to say. Everything is just dark and gloomy, and every day in their brain is cloudy, and oh, I don't know if we can make it happen. I mean, I'll try my best, but it's probably not going to go well. Like, most people are not positive. They don't talk to themselves like, man, you're a champion. You did it before. You can do it again. Like, you're one of the best. If anyone deserves this person's business, it is you. No one works harder than you. No one's willing to serve their clients more. The communication you have with your clients, the service you guys provide, the leads you, like, whatever your business model is, you're probably not talking to yourself like that before you hop on a sales call or during the pitch. Like, it's probably not happening. If it were happening, man, you would close a heck of a lot more deals. But a lot of people think that I've got to have everything that it takes already. And they're like, I've got everything that it takes to be successful. And they talk about things like, I deserve it. No, you don't. You haven't worked for it yet. You're not the right person yet. You don't have the habits. If you deserved it, you'd have it. Here's a great way to figure out if you deserve it. Do you have it? If you don't have it, you don't deserve it. If you don't deserve it, it's because you have not done the work behind it yet. See, you can never get mad at yourself when you look at, if I get out what I put in, and I'm not talking about karma or anything weird like that. I don't believe that garbage. But Say's law, the law of the markets, says that you get out what you put in. In other words, if I provide value, I get paid. I provide no value, I don't get paid. Okay? So things that are non-producing, people that are non-producing, people who work very, very, very menial jobs. For example, there's a guy that works at the gas station here in town, and I have a business project that I'm expanding with some partners, and we're looking for some key people. And I'm thinking, man, this guy is probably, he's got to be hungry. He works third shift at a gas station, probably hates it here. So I reached out to the guy. He's perfectly content. Like, not like, oh, I love my job. Like, he complains about it. He is perfectly content being there and doing nothing with his life but working third shift at a gas station. But he's working a very low-value job. Not that he's a low-value person. Not that he's a low-quality person. Not that he's garbage or a loser. Nothing like that. I'm not that kind of guy. But what he's contributing to society is low value. Now, if he was curing some disease, guess what? You can command a lot of money for that because it's high value. If he was selling BMWs, he can make a lot of money because that is a high value. When the exchange is made, I'm getting a great value for the money that I'm giving you. If he was selling 5,000 square foot homes, that's a high value thing. If he's selling suits at Men's Warehouse versus selling Italian cloth custom-made suits where they come to your house, measure you, let you pick out everything right there, buttons, thread, everything, and then they make it and bring it back, like, that's high value. You're going to make a lot of money. But when people believe, oh, I'm going to make XYZ amount of it, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, like, you're probably not the person right now that's going to do that, because if you were doing that currently, then you would be on your way there. If you're not that person, that's okay. You don't have to believe in yourself based on what you've not done. Start doing the thing, and then you can stack up evidence. Start changing, start growing as a person, and then you'll be like, you know what, I'm getting closer to the type of person. And instead of saying, I believe that I can do XYZ, why don't you look at, okay, what would the person who makes that amount of money? What would the person who has that percentage of body fat? What would the person who has that marriage? What would the person who runs that business? What would the person who speaks in that way? What are their habits? What do they read? What do they listen to? How do they think? How do they talk to themselves? How do they talk to their spouse? How do they manage their finances? What do they eat? How often do they work out? What's their sleep like? What's their supplementation like? All these different things. I can ask myself across the board, what do those people do? I believe it's like in the first 5 episodes of the show, Define, Learn, Do. I talked about it. What do those people do? Learn how to do it, and then go do it. Define what you want. Learn how to do it, and then go do those things. So define, what do these people do? How do they act? How do they think? Where do they go? Who do they hang out with? What do they listen to, watch, read, all that stuff? What is the E to E ratio? How much entertainment versus education do they have in their lives? And then begin to duplicate and replicate their results by doing what they do. Orrin Woodward says, if you're not happy with where you are in life, then you should not be happy with what you know. If you're not happy with where you are, then you should not be happy with what you know. See, we have a lot of friends who think it's hilarious that we are bookworms. I do not read because I'm just like so passionate about reading. I do love reading now, but I hated it when I started. But I understood that people who had fruit on the tree in the areas that I wanted to grow in were readers. Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. I understood that if I wanted to have a better marriage, then I needed to learn how to communicate better. Like specifics on communication that I wasn't taught, that I didn't have anyone else to teach me, but I could read a marriage book that a person who had done Christian marriage counseling and had saved thousands of marriages through that ministry, I could take a book that they wrote at the end of their life and I could read it in 5 or 6 hours and I could better my marriage because I was not happy with where I was, so I shouldn't be happy with what I know. Are you happy with where you are? Well, then you need to start learning different things. If the information that you currently have, see, we have this cycle. This was the first episode of this show. Not like the intro, but the first episode of the show. And I talked about thoughts, feelings, actions, results. There's kind of this cycle, if you will. Our thoughts are based on the information, the beliefs that we have. There's the beliefs as the bedrock, and we interpret all of our information through those beliefs. Then there's the information that we actually get, which we think through, and then we act on. After we have feelings, then we act on that. That brings us results. So beliefs, information in, which is interpreted by those beliefs, then our thoughts. Our thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings are what we base our actions off of. Then our actions determine our results, which then reinforce our beliefs. And then we either go get new information or stick with the same information, think through that, have a certain feeling about it, act a certain way, get results. And this happens over and over and over again. But you shouldn't be happy with what you know if you're not happy with where you're at. Here's the thing, and we're wrapping up here, but you've got to control the controllables. That means that you can set activity goals, not for results, but activity goals, the inputs. What are you putting in? If you want to get something out, I've got to decide what am I willing to put in, and what's the reasonable, if I put this in, then I will not fail. What are other successful people in this area putting in? If I do the same number of meetings, if I read the same books, if I hang out with the same people, go to the same conferences, listen to the same materials, develop the same habits, wake up and go to bed at the same times, take the same supplements, do the same workout routines, all those kind of things, what is the highest possible likelihood of achieving that thing if I put these inputs, these activities, these habits in place? Set activity goals. I'm going to do this thing, not I'm going to get this result, not I'm going to weigh 150, not I'm going to weigh 180. Like, that's a great goal. I have a weight goal right now, but I have to look at the inputs guiding me to the goal. If I look at the goal and then I don't pay attention to the inputs, I will never get there. So you've got to pay attention and set activity goals based around inputs. Learning goals, reading, listening, associating. I've talked about this before on the show many, many, many times. What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you associating? Meaning the type of people that you hang out with. Are the type of people that you're hanging out with encouraging? Do they believe that you can go where you want to go? I have a lot of awesome friends that I love to hang out with. But if I were to share business goals with them, they would tell me that, oh, that's materialistic, or that's this or that, or you shouldn't think that way, or like it doesn't matter. I could make $50,000 a month and live on $4,000, and they'd be like, oh, you guys are materialistic. Like, you have a big house. I could have paid cash for the house. I could donate 80% of everything I make, and they'd be like, yeah, there's no reason that anyone should ever make that much money. Like, you've got to be careful who you share things with. It doesn't mean that you can't hang out with them, but I don't go to them for that advice. I go to them for other advice. I go to them in matters that I'm like, man, that guy is a giant in that area. That gal, she can help us so much. Ashley, can you go talk to her? Like, I want to look at what's the fruit that they have on the tree, and I want to learn everything I can. If they're better than me in an area, which everyone is your superior in some area, I don't care who it is. The guy that collects our garbage on the street every single Friday, I guarantee you, if I went to that guy, and I'm not talking about his job, like if I worked with him on a Friday, like, oh, he's way better than, like stuff that matters. I guarantee that I could go to that guy, have a 2 or 3 hour conversation over coffee, and I could walk away like, dude, that guy's got so much wisdom in this area and that area. I learned this from him. I picked up this nugget. Man, I realized I was dropping the ball here. I could do better on this. Like, I guarantee I could find stuff in that guy that people would look at and be like, oh, he's not successful. But he has fruit on the tree in some areas. What are you reading? What are you listening? What are you associating with? And then what's a goal that you have for worst to first? Man, this is my worst area. This is the thing that I suck at the most. This is the thing that, holy cow, the gap between where I'm actually at and where I want to go is so huge. I think I talked about this in episode 16, but how can I plan, do, check, and adjust to go from worst to first in that area? Worst to first is a sports term when they talk about a team that was absolutely awful, like the Detroit Lions or the Browns or any of these teams that have been historically terrible, and then they begin to really kind of make a name for themselves. They go from worst to first because they are working their guts out to get there with specific intent. I make a plan. I do the plan. I check the results of that plan. Then I make adjustments based on those results. So in other words, the plan, here's the goal. I do, those are the inputs. I check, okay, what were the outputs? And then I adjust based on, okay, what do I need to make the new plan? That's the goal. And then how can I alter my inputs so that my results are the outputs that I want? They're the results that I want. So then I can make my next adjustment, set my goal, make my plan, determine my inputs, do those inputs, do the activity, and then check the results and do that over and over and over again. Some examples of things that you can absolutely control. I can go to the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week. I can dress a certain way. I can comb my hair a certain way. I can smile at people. I can work on my handshake. I can work on whitening my teeth. I can work on all these different things that help my physical appearance. That'll help my confidence. I can read. I can listen to things. I can go to events. I can try to hang out with more successful people. I can develop people skills by reading books and listening to materials if I'm bad in that area. If people do not like to be around me, I can change that about myself. I can put different things in my mind. I can ignore and starve negative media. What are the inputs that you have in your life? These are the controllables. I can worry about all the stuff that I can't change. For example, I'm 5'3" and I have a round facial shape. Like I can worry about that and be like, oh man, no one's ever gonna follow me or come to hear me speak. I'm a 5'3" round pudgy facial shape guy. No matter how lean I get, I just got this round face and no one likes that. And I just don't know. I can't seem to find clothes that fit my physique well because I lift weights and I'm short and stocky and I'm just never like I can't control certain things. But I can control what I can control. And if I put my focus where attention goes, energy flows. If I put my focus on what I can control, then I can improve it. Taking your focus and putting it on things that you cannot control, can't change, and all they do is screw with your head, you're wasting your time. Here's some points to ponder as we wrap up. What is absolutely within my control? 100%. What can I take total ownership, total responsibility, total control of, and then work on that one thing? Next thing that you could think about. What things, if I did them consistently for long enough, in the right amount, would make it unreasonable for me not to succeed? In other words, what would make it darn near impossible for me to fail if I did that thing, those things, these tasks at this amount, in this interval, for this duration of time? What would those things be? Next question, what is my filter to think through what is in versus what is out of my control? Do you need to tweak that? Because a lot of people have a victim mindset. Everything is someone else's fault. Everything is an externality. Everything is a circumstance. And you tell someone like flat out, like, hey, go fix this. I've coached with so many people. And you'll tell them like, hey, if you just fix this, stop that, and start this, or start this and stop that, like things will change. And they're like, oh, dude, you don't understand. Like, no, there's no way. Because my wife, because our finances, because my husband, because my job, because of our schedule, my kids, my this, my that, my shoulder, I got this physical ailment, this disease that you don't understand. I take my meds, I get tired of this stuff. Like there's just no way that I could do that. You don't understand. If you were me, if you lived by, you would understand why I can't do this. And then they talk to you about how bad they want it. So what is your filter? Is it a filter of absolute 100% Totally, how can I make this my fault, my responsibility? This is on me. Is that the filter? Because if you're looking for things to point to and say, well, I could do it if it weren't because of that, you're never going to get there. So do you need to change that filter through which you think through, is this in versus out of my control? Second to last thing, if you can't change it, don't talk about it or think about it. If someone comes to you with a problem that you can't help with, man, politely, you can listen. But like if they don't want your advice and you flat out cannot help with them, it's great to listen to your friends. But if that's your own brain and you're like, you know what, I can't change this at all, but I'm going to think about it a heck of a lot, it's just going to bring you down. If you can't change it, don't think about it and refuse to talk about it. You got to starve negative and feed positive only in your life. You know what you've got going for you is you can change. Last thing, what, if anything, can I take 100% responsibility over here? Kind of similar to, what is absolutely within my control, but ask yourself that. If you're like, oh no, I don't think I can make a change here. What, if anything, is my fault, is my responsibility, can I change? Question, you know what you've got going for you. Answer, you can change. Talk to you guys in the next episode.